Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor, the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Also, make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor. That's our Discord server, $2.99 per month. Link right here in the description. You bypass the Apple upcharge. The most heat, information, conversation, and of late, consternation. Check it out. It's Off the Floor. This is where you go vent with other Heat fans. Also, subscribe to Prize Picks. Use the code 5 FIVE. This one doesn't cost you anything, but you put down $5 and you'll get 50 to play. That's a pretty good deal. Try to find 10 to 1 anywhere else. This is the daily fantasy partner of the Five Reasons Sports Network. You can play up to 6 players together across the sports spectrum. Make the Heat season interesting. Go over or under on their players. Prize Picks. Use the code 5 FIVE. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yay, five on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at Five Reasons Sports. I got Digital Adel. You can follow him at Digital Adel on Twitter. You can also find him on our Discord, as I mentioned, Off the Floor, and also Playback. That's playback.tv/5RSN. Suffer through the Heat games with us. All right, we're continuing our draft series here, trying to give you some content on the current team at the same time as we look ahead to what they're going to become, because clearly what they are right now is not enough. Losers of 7 straight as we bring this to you. God knows what they'll be by the time that we go forward, because they're playing Memphis tonight. I believe this episode probably will post before that loss. And then what do we have here? We've got New York next week, Detroit at home, Houston at home. So yeah. And that's before they get Charlotte at home, which I would call an easy win, but they just lost to Charlotte at home. Then they follow that with the game against Jimmy. So, yes, that's where we are. We're looking towards June. We've got Adele here for a series of episodes. We did an episode about whether or not the Heat would actually, if they got their 2 picks, would actually try to trade up in the draft, something that they've never done in the first round under Pat Riley. They have never moved up in the draft. By the way, Adele, they've also never moved up in the lottery. That's been beyond their control, but I talked about that last night. They've never gotten the luck to move up ever. They've typically moved down, and again, that's beyond their control. Their lottery rules have changed a million times over the years. Whatever the rules have been, the Heat have never cashed in that chip. It's always Orlando or Cleveland for some reason. The Heat even dropped to 2 in a year that they were 15 and 67. And by the way, if their current winning percentage holds, this would be their worst season since 07-08. They currently have a worse winning percentage than any season they finished with. They've had worse ones during the year, but they finished with since 07-08 when they were 15 and 67. And honestly, they are without Jimmy Butler. Well, since the Jimmy Butler trade, they're basically a 25-win projection team.
Right. I mean,
right.
Not good.
Right. No. So we're going to talk about something else here. They need to find a new franchise player. It's no shot to Bam or to Tyler, who are very, very good players. Bam's obviously the captain. These are guys who were drafted 13th and 14th overall. Tyler 13th, Bam 14th. I never understood that. They have the opposite jersey numbers from their draft position. They should swap numbers. Bam should be 14 and Tyler should be 13. But we've seen, I like, this is not, they need someone else at the top of this thing, okay? And then everybody slides into their slots. So what we're going to look at today is what are the customary kind of measurables and attributes of franchise type players. We've already talked about how this is a very strong draft coming up. and that the Heat potentially, right now, again, we'll see if they make the playoffs or not out of the play-in. That will determine whether they keep their pick. The Golden State pick keeps getting worse, but it looks to be somewhere in that early 20 range at this point. So right now, they're not in position to get a franchise guy. You're not going to likely get a franchise guy at 22. Although I will say, and I did a little bit of research on this, Adele, beforehand, there are certain drafts that you can, for instance, Andrew Wiggins was the number 1 overall pick of the 2014 draft, and there was a lot of buzz about that particular draft, and that draft didn't turn out that great. And Wiggins has not turned out to be the best player out of that draft. The best player out of that draft was drafted 41st. That was Nikola Jokic. Giannis was drafted 15th. Like, it has happened in the past. It's not a frequent thing that happens. Let me just to reset here. Adele, you basically said there are 5 or 6 franchise-altering type players in this draft, right? That's what we came to in the last
Potential
episode?
franchise-leading players. That is correct.
Okay. You did some of this historical research on what a franchise-leading player typically looks like. Give us your overview.
So for franchise-leading players, it doesn't mean if this player has these types of attributes, they will be one. But one common thread since the Dwayne Wade draft, all the franchise-leading players have this in common. And that is, one thing is body fat percentage. It just speaks to them being the elite of the elite athletes. So on average, like 5.82% body fat percentage. Now, there are a few outliers, like James Harden, for example. He had like a 10% body fat percentage. And so those are rare. Just like Jokic being a franchise leading player drafted in the second round is an outlier to the data. Hand size is a big one. There's no guy that's a franchise leading player under 9-inch hand. Nobody under that. Wingspan to height ratio. There's nobody with a negative one. Most of them on average have like a 5-inch wingspan to height ratio. So they have a really long wingspan relative to whatever height that they are. And most of them on average are over 204 pounds. So they're really rocked up athletes, the best of the best when it comes to that. When you contextualize, like if you were creating a player in 2K, they need to look like this and be like that, regardless if it's a point guard, shooting guard, or wing. They all fit that archetype.
Okay, so we're going to get into the specifics of the players of this year, and again, which ones the Heat might need the most if they could actually get up in this space. But let me do a little bit of counter programming to you here.
Sure.
Okay. Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic are 2 of the 5 best players in the NBA right now.
Yes.
Do either of them fit that archetype?
So I looked at this specifically through shooting guard, point guard, wing. I didn't look at Jokic at all, like his forward, center, any of that.
So let's throw Jokic out. Luka, what does Luka play? I guess is the question, right? That's the tough thing.
But it's not. He could fit either one of those 3 things. But as far as contextualizing Luka is one of those guys that comes along like once every like 10 years. You know what I mean? Like he's not an everyday type guy. But his game, you got to put, like, this is what I was saying. Not everybody that fits this archetype is going to be a star, but this is kind of just a prototype of what you look for. And then you put your rest of your evaluation into that. I'll give you an example. Rob Dillingham last season. I was probably one of the biggest non-Rob Dillingham fans there were in the evaluation space. One, because there were a few like things to his game I didn't like, but also he was historically small. Hand size wise, wingspan wise, weight wise, his weight was way off. And so it helps you to really see historically how these people are going to perform in the NBA, along with the rest of the evaluation.
Right. So we haven't had the Chicago camp yet. We haven't had any of the things that go on in the postseason yet. Obviously, we're just entering the NCAA tournament. By the way, we are going to be sort of showing you how to watch the NCAA tournament. I know Adele and Matt are going to be doing a lot of work on that, and we'll bring that to you here on 5 on the Floor. So let's go through it a little bit. Last year, you really liked Stephon Castle, right?
Yes.
He had these prototype tools, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And again, we've seen it. He was in the slam dunk contest. We've also seen him perform at a high level for the Spurs this year, to the point that De'Aaron Fox wanted them to keep Castle rather than trade Castle for him. We've already seen that, and likely rookie of the year. Although it feels like this year, every month there's a different player that we're talking about. Okay. So this particular season, it seems to me, and again, I'm just spitballing here because I've seen these players all a little bit, but obviously I've done a little bit more research since we've talked about it. The top 6 guys that you talked about the other day,
Right.
who do you expect to fall into the category that we're speaking of? And again, a
And
couple of them are front court guys, so that may not fit this, right?
correct. It may not fit this, but Cooper Flag could be a big wing depending on what team and what system and
Mm,
scheme that he plays in. So, I mean, we have the Miami Heat, as you mentioned, the likelihood of them getting Cooper Flag,
yeah.
the number 1 overall pick, is very minimal. 2% is the current odds on Tankathon, according to them. 2% chance. But that being said, the combine's really going to tell the story on a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jalen Rose or Derrick Rose, I went back to college and I looked at they listed him at 6'3". When he came out, he was 6 foot tall. Now he still had the wingspan, but the combine's going to tell a lot of this story. Now, players I expect to fit this, Dylan Harper, he's going to absolutely probably fit this. His wingspan's out of this world. Cooper Flag, I think, will fit it. Ace Bailey, he's 6'10", elite shot maker. I think his wingspan and frame and all that will fit. VJ Edgecombe, I have concerns about. They list him at 6'5", best athlete in the draft, but he doesn't look 6'5".
Okay.
I haven't stood next to him, so I can't tell you for sure. That's why I kind of wait to the combine. Kasper Shakachonis, he'll fit this. And then my guy that I'm really looking for that could fall down because of these guys to where the Heat could potentially get, Trey Johnson.
Trey Johnson. Yeah.
That's my guy. Yeah, I'm interested big time in what his measurables come out to be.
Do you remember what Dwayne's were when he came out? Because first thing, Dwayne was never what they said he was height wise. He never was. I think Dwayne was maybe 6'3". I think 6'2.5" was probably about where he was. Obviously, elite wingspan and elite in terms of the other measurables, body fat, etc. But do you remember where he was?
I actually put all of these guys since Dwayne Wade's draft into a spreadsheet. So there's 19 of them. And Dwayne Wade was 6.7% body fat. This is from NBA.com, the combine measurements. 6.7% body fat, 6.3 or 6'3" in a quarter, three quarters. They said his height was at. I think he was a little bit smaller, but 212 pounds, and his wingspan was 6'10" in 3 quarters.
Yeah. That was the thing. It was the wingspan. It was the body fat. I mean, he came out. What the thing I liked about him the most on draft night was that he came in. Well, he came the next day for the press conference, and it was like, okay, that's an NBA athlete, like immediately. Like you could just tell, like there's and he was in college an extra year beyond some of these players. And again, we'd seen him in the tournament, but you're like, no, that's an NBA athlete, but not as tall as I thought he would be. I guess that was the case, and but he didn't need it. He still was the best shot blocking guard in the league during that period of time, and obviously had everything else. All right, on the other side of this. I want to deep dive a little bit more on the type of player we're talking about here, because we're really focusing on the guard position, which is where again, I'm not in favor of taking for position. I'd say you take best player available.
Right.
But it does look like this is a year that will match up for them. And so that you need to find these guys, and we'll go a little bit deeper into the draft. Maybe some of these guys that are not in your top 6 who might have some of the measurables we're talking about and could pop. Because again, there are great players that come that are acquired outside, and the Heat have acquired very good players outside of the top 10 also.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point. But one thing that I want to point out whenever I looked at the franchise changing players from the past in Dwayne Wade's era, really one of them went past pick 15. One.
Mm-hmm.
And that was Jimmy Butler. He went pick 30.
And he had those measurables, but nobody expected him to be what he became. He didn't even, think about Jimmy. People forget he didn't even start a game his rookie season. Played 40 games his rookie season. Did not even start a game for Tibbs in Chicago at that point. Everybody thinks of him. Yeah, he came off the bench. He played a role in the playoffs, but that was nobody saw this. And then power struggle with Rose a little bit in the backcourt, and then obviously getting to Minnesota and kind of getting his own team, regardless of how that finished. Which is how it finishes for him everywhere. Obviously that's when he kind of really sprouted that in Philadelphia and Miami after that. All right, I'll hold the thought though, because I want to get to this after the break. Before we do, I want to introduce our friends over at Cousins USA. Oh, I'll tell you about Cousins USA. I thought we had that in there in the background. All right, tell you about Cousins USA. Go to cousinsusa.com/5RSN. Reach out to him at 888-300-6683. That's 888-300-6683. These are your local movers. They say our family moving yours. These are really good people, and everybody who works for them has been with them for like 20 years. There's a reason for that. Again, family business. Check them out. It's cousinsusa.com/5RSN. That'll get you directly to their page and schedule your move today. We know obviously it's spring break time, but some of the kids are going to be coming back from college soon. Help them out with that. Everything else that you need to do, South Florida, everybody's moving all the time. So check them out, cousinsusa.com/5RSN. Also check out their Instagram account at cousinsusa. Apologies for that. All right, let's get back to it. So you mentioned Jimmy was the one guy who kind of became a franchise type player, although again, not immediately. In these terms, I'm assuming you said 15 or later. So Giannis was 15th. Kawhi was 15th, right? So that seems to be this sort of weird place where after that it's harder to find a guy. We think the Heat could be in that space. They could be close to 15, a little bit higher than that. All right, so of the players we've talked about, you mentioned Edgecombe. You mentioned some of these guys that could be there if the Heat are able to move up. Is there anybody that you think could have the measurables and maybe is not in your top 5 or 6 now, but has sort of the physical tools that if things work out right for them, that they could become pretty close to a franchise guy? Oh, Adele, I think you're muted, actually. I'll send you back. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's just like me at work. I do the same thing. Yeah, no, Jeremiah Fears is a very interesting kid, right? His growth has been a big part of me coming around to him because he's gotten better and better and better. He's a point guard for Oklahoma, and I'm really going to be interested in the combine because we don't have any of this data to see which one of these guys fits that archetype. But he's right now like 182 pounds, listed at 6'4", could be a little bit smaller. So his wingspan is going to be something that's interesting, hand size, all of that. But he has that type of potential to be a franchise leading, franchise changing type of point guard. Jace Richardson from Michigan State, he doesn't get to show a lot of his NBA playmaking skills, but he's the kid as a freshman that Tom Izzo trusts down the stretch, and they go to him time and time again in pick and rolls and penetrating actions. So he's going to be very interesting. Later than that, Cam Jones from Marquette, he's an older guy, 6'5", 200 pounds. He looks like he's going to fit that archetype. He looks like he has super long arms. So I think he's going to be one of those types of guys to potentially look at. But Boogie Fland, he could fall because he got injured. He could be at the end of the first round now. He's a smaller guy, like 6'2", 6'1" point guard, but he was shooting like 50% on his catch and shoot threes. He was the leader of that team as a freshman. Super long arms. He looks like he has big hands. So again, the combine's going to play a lot into this.
Give me the player on your list. You said you did a spreadsheet on this.
Okay.
Give me the player on your list who, by all the metrics, should have been a franchise player but wasn't.
Well, so I didn't put those guys on the list. That's the
Okay.
thing. So, but they're littered throughout the draft. There's a lot of people. Let me just give me 1 second. I can pull up something for you.
Yeah, because I'm just curious because I'm looking at so for instance, okay, let me go back to the 14 draft, to Wiggins draft. All right.
Yep.
I would assume, okay, and again, I don't have all the metrics in front of me. I would assume that Andrew Wiggins hit these metrics. I just again,
Yeah.
Again, not maybe as physically strong as some of these other players. You look at wingspan, the way he was talked about. I would assume Dante Exum hit some of these metrics. He was picked 5th overall that year. I'm looking at some of the others. It's funny because this draft was so hyped, and it was Wiggins, Jabari Parker, Joel Embiid. Obviously, I mean that's a center, so we're talking about something a little different there. Aaron Gordon, I would assume again was more of a 3-4, but I would assume he hit all these metrics athletically. He has turned out to be a very good NBA player, finally kind of finding his fit as a third option instead of as a first or second. My Marcus Smart, I would assume, hit a lot of these metrics. Has not been a franchise player, but a very good player. Randall, more of a big. Nick Stauskas, I still can't believe he went 8th in the draft. I saw him up close with the Heat. They brought him in. It's funny when they drafted Hero, one of the comps was to Stauskas. And then you see the two of them next to each other. Like, how did that comp come in? Noah Vonleh, 9th, kind of a bust, even though he played 8 years. Elfrid Payton couldn't shoot. That hurt him. Doug McDermott, Sarge. And then I look at Zach LaVine, was picked 13th and has been a lot better than a lot of the other guys. And he clearly has those metrics.
Yes.
And so he applies. So again, I think you can find them later. Like LaVine at 13, is he a franchise player? No, but he's obviously been, I mean, he was sort of entrusted to be a franchise player with Chicago. It didn't work out. And then I'm looking at next year, and this is kind of the famous Winslow draft for the Heat. Cat, big, picked 1st overall. Obviously, he's had a very strong career. D'Angelo Russell has never really found a fit, even though he scored a lot. I would assume he had a lot of the metrics. Okafor, Porzingis.
He didn't meet the body fat. Just like Stauskas, he didn't meet the body fat.
Okay, I can see that. Okafor, Porzingis, both bigs. Hazonia didn't really not pan out in the States. I remember being at the Chicago camp where all these players were. There was a lot of hype about this draft, mostly because of all the Kentucky guys, of which I believe, and of course the best Kentucky guy ended up being the guy that went 13th. But you had Towns first. I guess you could argue he's been the best, but one of the two best. Cauley Stein was picked 6th. Trey Lyles was picked 12th. Devin Booker was picked 13th. They had 4 starters picked in the top 13, and I think they had one of the Harrison twins was picked in the 2nd round. But like, here's another guy. This is a good example, and I think bust. And I saw this guy in summer league that year, Adel, and I really liked him, and he did not turn out to be a good NBA player, which was Emmanuel Mudiay, who was picked 7th overall, but ended up shooting 32% from 3 and was turnover prone and never panned out. Stanley Johnson, who I know the Heat were going to take, okay? Winslow slipped to them. And I remember I was talking to Stanley and tweeting about Stanley in Chicago at pre-draft camp. And one of the Heat officials in the scouting staff texted me and said, "Would you please stop? You're giving it away." Like they were, and of course he went 8th to Detroit, and other than like a pretty decent stint with the Lakers, has been nothing more than like a back end rotation player. Now I would assume Kaminsky a big, but he probably did not have a lot of these metrics. But I would guess Justice had these metrics, right?
Absolutely. And I think it speaks a lot to, like I said, this just is a archetype, and then you do your film evaluation and the other stuff. The one thing about Emmanuel Mudiay, he was always turnover prone, and his 3-point shot was always bad. Like, his mechanics on it were bad. That was something that I kind of, was alerted to early whenever I was casually looking at him at that time. Stanley Johnson, again, let me preface this also. Work ethic is a big thing, like adding and growth. That's why Jimmy Butler, as that like anomaly, because his wingspan to height ratio is only a 1.5. He like barely fit those metrics. It's just he had an insane work ethic. And so these players that have talent and the work ethic together, and this archetype, that's when you're like ding, 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 like lights go off like gangbusters. So
no, that was the whole thing. Even Jimmy has said that his great skill was work ethic, was want to, which again in the right moments he still has. And a lot of these guys don't. But I think another part of this is also situation though. It's the situation you're drafted to. I think all this goes into it. There's an archetype, but Stanley Johnson also went to a bad Detroit team at the time, and I think that plays into it. I remember Justice was getting a lot of accolades as a rookie because he was playing a role on a good team that Miami had kind of turned the corner that year. 14-15, we've talked about that one on the podcast, was kind of a transition year, kind of like this. But 15-16, they'd added Dragic, they had Whiteside for a full season, they had Deng, they had Wade, they had Bosch, and then it was okay. Then Jay Rich off the bench too, as the 40th overall pick, who outperformed a lot of guys in that draft. One more just to kind of go at this, and then I'll let you have the final word. So I look at the next year. Okay, so this is 16. The best player in this draft was a big Sabonis, picked 11th, has the best in terms of VORP or win shares. Actually, yes, both. Second was Siakam, another big, picked 27th. So again, 11th, 27th. By the way, third in win shares is Zubats, who's actually coming to his own this year. He's picked 32nd. So it tells you. But some of the higher profile players, Jaylen Brown went third overall. Obviously, has panned out. He's been a Finals MVP. Has all those metrics, right? Yeah, I mean that would
every single one of them. Yeah,
right. I would figure. Jamal Murray was picked 7th. He strikes me that he might not though.
I can almost assure you he probably didn't hit the body fat percentage, but let me.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Just by the looks of, when you see Jamal Murray up close, you're like, wow, okay, I'm surprised it panned out for him quite as well as it did. I mean, DeJounte Murray was picked 29th in that draft, and he has those metrics, I'm sure, in terms of wingspan, body fat, all of that stuff. But yeah, Jaylen Brown has turned out to be better than both of them ultimately, although Jamal Murray has been a borderline all-star for pretty much the length of his career. But there's another guy, and this again gets into it, where it really does come down to having the other skill sets. Chris Dunn was picked 5th in that draft. I loved him coming out.
Me too.
I did too. I loved Chris Dunn coming out of college.
Yeah.
He's pretty much a point of attack defender now.
Right.
Borderline backup point guard, not to the level of the 5th pick in the draft.
Combine.
Okay. But I would have assumed he would have. I don't know. I mean, I would assumed he would have had most of the measurables. I really liked him, and which tells you can really like a player in one turn. All right, I'll let you have the final thought on this. In terms of the Heat's chances, if they're picking 13th and 23rd, probably not going to find one of these guys. We wouldn't think, but how well do things line up, in particular in terms of trying to get a guard? You're not going to find the next Dwayne. We're not saying that, but trying to find a guard who can give you the kind of athleticism, and the physical tools that you need here.
So my overarching theme of this is going to connect into probably a pod we'll do later down the line after the combine. We're really going to want to wait to see what the measurables are on this class. The Heat are in line to get in, if they do keep their own pick, probably pick 11. Tankathon has their odds for pick 11 at 77%. So if you're picking around pick 11, you're talking about Jeremiah Fears is moving up. So I don't think Fears is going to be there. But Jace Richardson, Nolan Traore, Ben Seraph. Ben Seraph, let me talk about him real quick. He's a 6'5", 200-pound guard that plays in Europe. He is really quick with the ball, has a nice handle, great feel for the game, a lefty. Reminds me a little bit of Goran whenever he drives to the rim. It's kind of how he is. He's really young, playing professionally, like 19 years old, playing professionally, and starts on that team. And a theme I noticed when I watched him is that the team always comes back, takes the lead when he's on the floor. He goes off the floor, they start losing. He affects winning, is my point. And at 6'5", 200, depending on what his measurables come in, he could fit this archetype. Cam Jones, a senior. That's a Miami Heat type of guy. You got the Marquette connection, 6'5", 200. He'll fit the archetype as well. So he's a name to keep an eye on. Also, could he be a franchise leading guy? His athletic profile doesn't suggest that he will be, because he's not super explosive vertically and he's not super explosive with his foot speed. So there are going to be guys there, but they may not be franchise leading guys depending on where the pick is.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Marquette and Kentucky first and go down from everywhere else with the Heat. Pat said he's not drafting any more Duke guys. I wonder if they got the number 1 pick of the draft, if he could be convinced to take a Duke guy this time. Maybe not. We'll see. All right, thanks, Adel. We appreciate it. We'll do more on this draft series as we're going forward. We are continuing to cover the games. I've given Greg a 20-minute limit on those just to preserve his peace of mind. You catch a post-game podcast. Actually, I think I'm hosting the one tonight, so that'll be about 4 minutes long. All right, Adel, appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks to our sponsors, cousinsusa.com /5RSN, prize picks, use code 5FIVE.